Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Here we go, everyone. The start of another week of Bears coverage here on the Ballroom Network. I'm Aldo Gandia, and just want to let you know we've got another show tonight, and I'm going to be a guest on a show, and I'll mention that on my Ballroom Network Twitter account a little later today once I get all the details. So without further ado, let me welcome in Greg Gabriel. Greg, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing wonderful. How about you, Aldo?
I'm doing great. We were talking to Jarrett just before we went on, and he was saying this is a great time to be a Bears fan, and I couldn't say that any better. This is really a great time.
Yep. Yes, it is.
You want to introduce your man there?
Yeah. Hey, Jarret Payton is one of my favorite people in Chicago in the 23 years I've been here. Just a super, super dude. I've been a guest of his a few times at WGN. I think we got a pretty good relationship, and I'm glad he was able to take some time out from his busy day to join us.
And there he is, Jarret Payton. Yay!
Hey,
what's up, man?
What's going on, fellas? Man, hey, GG and AG, my guys, man. You guys are like family to me, man. Listen, I'm so geeked up. I'm so excited. And like I was saying to you guys, just in Arizona, and having a great time in Arizona on a short spring break with my family, and everywhere I went out there in Chicago West, all these people coming up to me, Bears fans, all different ages, super excited about the direction that the franchise is going, and just love all the moves that have been made. I just said, like you were saying, although it's a great time to be a Bears fan and where this team is. And I mean, there's certain things that I think of with this organization right now when I look at just how many draft picks they have. I'm really waiting to see how this all plays itself out, right? Because I know Poles likes to have picks, but we were arguing last night on GN Sports is everybody's like, well, I still want to see what he does with the number one pick. Dude, it's Caleb, man. It's locked in. There's no movement there. And I'm excited to see what Caleb can do here in Chicago. I let it all out last night. I've been holding back because there's like people on the fence, one side or the other side, throughout this whole process since Justin had been traded. And even when Justin got traded to the Steelers, people still, the feeling that they have, which is remarkable for a young man that spent not a lot of time in this city, but is loved by this fan base. I don't think I've ever seen that before in this city. Like a guy that's not from here, you know, like the feeling like Derrick Rose when he was here, and then like when that all went sour, it was a different feeling because Derrick's from here, so he's like one of us. But man, it's pretty similar. And I know people are going to take this the wrong way, and please don't. I'm not comparing them to my pops. But the way that the city loved my dad in that long, he had 13 years to be able to play. Justin had a short period of time, maybe didn't have the production that we all had hoped, but what he did and how hard he worked and everything that he was about, man, this city really grabbed a hold of him, man, and I've never seen anything like that before. And so I was torn, like, do I say something? And last night I ripped the Band-Aid off and I was like, dude, let's go, man. Let's go. With the way this offense is being constructed and the high ceiling and the level that I believe that Caleb can get to with the right coaching, the right offensive system, he's got that ability. And I keep saying this, I'm going to keep using it because I look at Patrick Mahomes. Him and Andy Reid keep finding ways to unlock these doors, to keep going up another level. He always finds a way. Caleb, I feel like, has that in him. They gotta figure it out. And if they can figure it out, man, that could be, man, a recipe for a lot of success here at Chicago, especially at the quarterback position.
You know, Jarret, that was really some nice stuff you said, but you hit the key point when you're talking about Andy Reid. And would Patrick Mahomes be Patrick Mahomes if he wasn't matched with Andy Reid?
No.
You know, would he be an entirely, he's still a talented player, but would he be the player that he is now? Would Josh Allen be the player he is now if he wasn't originally matched with Brian Daboll, who really brought him along as a young player? So I think that the development of Caleb is going to be how good that relationship is between him and Shane Waldron. Yeah. And what excites me about Shane Waldron is what he was able to do with Geno Smith, because Geno Smith was a nobody. And, you know, a journeyman quarterback who had no success, and he turned him into a Pro Bowl quarterback in 1 year. Now, granted, Caleb's a rookie. He's got to go through the rookie pains. And I just hope that people don't expect too much from him and say, well, you know, Stroud did it last year. Well, what Stroud did last year happens once every 15 years. You know that. Yeah. So to expect that same thing, you know, it's unrealistic. Do you hope it happens? Absolutely. And part of it's going to be how the schedule will probably come out within the next month or 6 weeks or something. And who are they playing those first few games? You know, usually the league has a way of starting the Bears off with really tough games to start. Why don't they throw a cupcake in there to start? Get a little confidence going.
Yeah, but Greg, though, you know that the expectations are going to be skyrocketing so high right off the bat. That's what people are. They're not. This is. I think it's going to be unfair if he doesn't come out and balls out right away and have a CJ Stroud type of year, because I mean people. That's what people are expecting, especially after the Justin trade. And to me, that's unfair.
I agree. That's why I said what I said.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying it's truly unfair. But I think that's what I've heard the most from these fans, is that that's what they're expecting. And I feel like we gotta step back, because we're literally in the same position of watching this organization do what it's done with all quarterbacks that they've had. Really, I mean, the ones that, you know, we just even in the near future, like we talk about, we're throwing these guys into a situation saying, here you go, take the keys, here's the Porsche, here's the Ferrari, whatever it is, here you go, and go. And there's no waiting process. There's no let's develop, let's sit and relax a little bit, let's let you learn the game. It's like it's right away. Now, when I look at the two prior, right? So that's Mitchell Trubisky and Justin Fields. To me, both guys could have really benefited from having some time to develop and watch the game. Every quarterback can. I feel like Caleb's not going to have that opportunity, but he's also walking into a situation where, as a rookie quarterback, this right here is lovely when you start looking at the playmakers that you have around you. Definitely got to figure out a way to make sure that offensive line is going to be rock solid, because I don't want any more issues of that to me. I'll talk about that a little later about the line of scrimmage. You got to dominate the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football if you're going to win anything, like be in contention to win anything. But when I look at Caleb, he walks into this situation now where if there's a guy from watching his college film, he's got to develop. There's parts of his game that he's going to have to develop. And not only Shane Waldron, but Kerry Joseph as well. These guys are going to be able to hopefully hone in on some of that. But man, if there's a dude that could do what CJ Stroud did, to me, it's Caleb. Like I know it happens every once in a while, but if it was going to happen, Caleb seems like the young man in his preparation, how he handles, how he loves the game, and how he wants to be a student of the game. He seems like he's a guy that can do that. I'm just not going to put all that pressure on him right away.
Well, Jarrett, Greg, just very quickly, yesterday Ryan Poles said that he was going to visit Jaden Daniels at the LSU. So do you think that there is still a sliver of a chance that they might look at another quarterback in the draft, maybe trade down and pick Jaden Daniels?
Okay, Greg, I'm going to tell you, if Jaden Daniels is nasty too, man. If you're talking about pro ready, coming from a pro style offense, I mean, that young man, I know everybody looks at his build and say, he's maybe not as big or whatever. Dude, we gotta, some ways for me, I have to back up a little bit. I watch what conference do you play in, the situation that you're going into. To me, all that factors into all that. Jaden Daniels is a nasty football player. Great touch on the football, can make all the throws. Maybe not all these guys are kind of sneaky, not fast, but game fast. You know what I mean? Can get out of trouble when they need to. They might not have the blazing speed, but neither does a guy like Patrick Mahomes. They find ways to be able to use their speed when they need to on the football field. I was saying that before. I would say over the last 3 months that maybe Jaden Daniels was a guy that they could possibly go get. From everything that I keep hearing, I think it would be hard to pass up on Caleb at 1 for these guys.
Poles would be setting himself up for something he just doesn't want to be in.
Yeah,
by doing that, he got rid of Fields, and we can have our feelings about that. And he basically came right out and said yesterday he didn't get a fair shot. And is it Poles' fault? Not really. Poles didn't draft him. Poles inherited him. But given the situation, Poles had to take care of the team first.
We lost your audio, Greg.
We lost you, G. I know what you're saying, though.
Yeah.
He was.
Go ahead, Jarrett.
Greg was talking about how he didn't draft him. So, this was the opportunity where, and Greg was saying it right, that he had to take care of this football team. And when you look at the roster now, that's what he had to do. He literally had to revamp this roster to get it back to a way where, okay, now we can actually start. Now we have a foundation and we can start building upon this. And that's not easy to do the way that Ryan Pace left this roster. AG, it wasn't easy. And for a guy that's been very, very cautious with how he spends his money and how they spent this organization's money, he's had to do it in a real creative way to be able to get it where we are now and saying, holy cow. I was looking at this off season, and I know we all keep looking at the dollar signs like, oh, you can go get this. You can go get this. You got all this money. Man, he's been very, very sneaky and smart with how he's built it. And I think that's why I give him a lot of credit. Not has he hit on everything? No, he hasn't hit on everything. Greg, you there?
His audio is still gone.
Still don't got your audio.
That is weird. And it was in mid-sentence.
He's mid-sentence, and guess what? That means I could take over for you then. I can read minds. I know what
you got. Right you got a little experience at hosting shows.
Yeah.
Jarrett, let me ask you a question while Greg is figuring out his setup there.
Yeah.
Are you in agreement with the way Ryan Poles handled the Justin Fields situation? And what I mean by that is he shows up to the combine and he says, I'm going to do right by Justin Fields. Do you think that was a signal to the NFL? I'm going to trade him. And that in turn lowered his trade value? Or do you think it was an amalgamation of things? Lots of quarterbacks coming out in the draft this year, lots of free agents, Russell Wilson basically being a free agent. Do you think it was an amalgamation, or do you think that Poles did himself and the team a disservice by saying he was going to do right by Justin?
No, I don't think so, because I know Ryan, man, and he's an honest dude. And I know that he, certain times where he's been very, very calculated on how he's gone about doing his press conferences or any time that he talks. And in that moment when he said he wanted to do right by Justin, that's just him being a good dude. And sometimes when you get microphones in front of you when you're talking, sometimes you say things and you say it from the heart. And yeah, maybe it showed what they've done so well. They've they've kind of held those cards close to the vest throughout since he's been here. And the other thing that has been amazing is that there hasn't been leaks about what's been going on, which to me has been crazy. And Greg knows, like, I'm around, so I know everybody. And so the fact that, like, when I can't get word out of what's going on, like, that means that the camp is like this. And so I give them a lot of respect. At that moment, he was saying how he felt. He was being honest, and maybe he showed the cards just a little bit, and we all started reading into it. And then next thing you know, it starts to blow up into what the Bears are going to do. I mean, it's just the way that it all kind of played itself out, man. You know,
Yeah.
You also have to look at the contract, and you have one more year left on that rookie deal, and then you got to figure out a way to be able to pay this young man if that's what you're going to do. It wasn't an easy situation. They were trying their best to be able to do what they could, but nah, I mean, I like the way that he handled it. He's been honest throughout the whole process, and so I give him a lot of credit for that. And he did his best to be able to hold his cards, but at some point, man, sometimes it comes from here, the heart, and that's what slipped out a little bit, and then we kind of all ran with it.
Well, he mentioned his son and his son having the jersey and having to tell his son about the trade.
He knew what the deal was. He knew how tough this was going to be for him to make this move and to move Justin. Like, this wasn't an easy deal for him to do. Like, he knew that the city and the organization, the city loved the young man, and man, there was so much. But we also got to look at too the flip side of this, and I think sometimes we forget is that, man, Poles is trying to do his best to keep his job as long as possible, and I'm not going to hate a man for that. I'm never going to hate on a man for that. That's what he's trying to do, trying to be around, because GM jobs don't just come around, and you don't just get a bunch of them. So if you got one, you got to be able to set yourself up to be able to stay around for the longest period of time. And so this resets the clock a little bit, but also gives you an opportunity. I know people keep saying generational. I'm not going to say a generational player, but I mean, when I watch that film of Caleb, and then I flip on the film of Patrick Mahomes, a lot of similarities there in the way that they played the game, especially in college, right? If you can find a way if that's so similar, let's try to find a way to be able to get the best out of this young man. I think it's hard that you can pass up on a talent like that at that position. And I'm looking forward to seeing how they kind of keep building on this. And so I'll never hate on Ryan Poles, man. Like, I'll be critical when things don't work out. But I've also jumped, as everybody was kind of straddling the fence of which side they were on. I went about this the way saying Poles is going to do his homework, his due diligence, and whatever decision he makes, I'm going to roll with it, because I know he's putting in the work to figure this thing out. And so that's why it's heartbroken. And you guys know, and everybody, all Bears fans know, I'm one of Justin's biggest supporters, man. I always have been like, he is my dude. So it wasn't easy for me, but also too, I think it was my trust in Poles to do right by the organization, and also do right by the fans and what's going to be best for us in the long run. And that's the decision he made. And so I'll roll with it. And then, down the line, if it doesn't work out, then we can talk about it. But I'm not going to hate on a man for trying to figure out how to keep his job and stay around as long.
Can you guys hear me yet?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Got you now,
good.
boy.
Okay, good. Gospel according to Jarret Payton.
Man.
Well said.
Hey, I got a question for you guys.
Okay.
What the Bears going to do with that 9th pick?
That's a great question.
That's a question we have for you.
Hey,
here's what I don't think a decision's been made because you can't. You don't know who's going to go 2 through 8. But I think part of it will be answered over the next 3 weeks on who, if anybody, they sign in free agency. They still are weak on the wide receiver core, and they've got one pass rusher on the team, Montez Sweat, and they have mentioned a couple times, we got to get another pass rusher. Well, in this draft, the first round's got where they're sitting. There's some really good ones.
Yeah.
But if you wait and say, okay, let's say one of those top 3 wide receivers are there, and that's tough to pass on, then you're hoping that there's a guy in the 3rd round, but there's no guarantee that, because there's a big drop off in talent at that position in this draft, where at the wide receiver position, hell, you're going to be getting good players into the 4th round.
Yeah.
And so what it comes down to, and people don't talk about, is, people can have their favorite. Well, Romo Dunze is there. You got to take him. Okay. Yeah. Granted, I get it. But where is he on their board? True. Because that's the only thing that matters. Yeah. And we're never going to know what that is. We can say they passed on this guy, but they're going to go according to how they have the players ranked.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes needs have a way of jumping one player over another, having been in those situations before, but it'll just be an interesting situation. I think, and because they don't have any picks, so let me back up a little bit. I think if they sign a vet between now and the draft, a vet wide receiver, then that takes the wide receiver out of the 9 spot. Yeah. And then if you get to 9 and all 4 of the edge guys are there, that's telling me, well, let's trade back a little bit. You're not going to get a 2 because you got to go back 8, 9 spots to get a 2. And you're not going to give up that. Now you're taking a chance of losing one of those guys. Yeah. So you got to put yourself in a position to still get one of those guys. And that's like trading back 3 or 4 slots. That gets you another 3rd. Yeah. So now you'd have 2 thirds and you'd get an edge rusher. You still don't have a 2nd, but now you look at, well, now I got some ammo to get up into the 2nd if I really want to, but I got to use something next year to do it. And I already got 2 2s next year, so I do have some ammo. So there's things they can do. It's just got to play out right.
Yeah. And to me, that's the hardest part is Greg just hit it on the head. It comes down to how they have their board set up and how everything goes after the number 1, and then they start figuring things out. I was thinking that I thought the tail a little bit, and Greg, it's interesting you talk about they go sign another veteran receiver. I thought with the Keenan Allen signing that was going to really maybe move, that they could go another direction. But there are some dudes in here. I mean, you find a way. What's the kid Dallas Turner? I mean, if he's there at 9, that right, him and Montez Sweat would just be that's crazy. We're talking about like a prospect that has a chance to be phenomenal. Him, the other kid from, and I don't like Florida State, but I think Jarrett. I mean, if he's there as well.
I'm not a big Verse fan, as many people are.
I'm just saying that if there's, depending on where these guys on their boards, I mean,
right, you
can get one of those guys, but also too, I mean, it's hard to pass up on some of these receivers, man.
Yeah,
Dunze is just nasty. I mean, I just love watching. I watched that Washington team play throughout the season, just because, man, there were so many different games. The Oregon game, the game against USC. I mean, it was just prime time to be able to watch those West Coast games. And so to watch him develop throughout this season, man, he would be nasty as well. And you're talking about a young guy that they keep adding on to what they're building on the offensive side of the ball. And that just gives more firepower to Caleb Williams. I mean, so either way, I believe in my heart, you guys know, it might not be sexy. I just want to make sure that both lines of scrimmage are like where they need to be. Like, I don't want that to be an issue. You have to be able to dominate on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Like, you have to. If you're in winning, like not just a playoff game or whatever. I'm talking about winning, getting to the big game. Where this thing right behind me, this right here, to win one of these, You have to be dominant, man. Like, so to me, I know it's hard without picks and all this other stuff. I get it. But I know Poles likes more picks. That's always his thing. He likes to be able to, he needs more picks. So I want to see how creative he can be, Greg, and finding ways to get himself what he needs, but also stack more picks, even if it's not for right now, or if he feels like, I need to use one of those seconds from next year to be able to move up to get a guy. I'm going to be excited to see how he does his business, because during the draft, what I saw this past season, he's methodical in how he goes through his mindset of on draft day and making those moves to be able to get his roster the way he wants to. It's fun to watch.
Well, if you're going to trade up, and let's just assume or put in the thought process that it's in the equation that you could you trade down a little bit and you get an extra third. And now you got some ammo to try to get into the second. And you got to use one of those 2-2s next year. You're not moving into the second just to move into the second. Mm-hmm. You're moving into the second to get a specific player. Mm. Otherwise, they don't make the move. They're not, they're going to say that hey, we want this guy, and now we got to go ahead and get him, find a way to get him. So, and then you start making the calls to the teams in that area. And you do, a lot of times it happens, you do a conditional. Hey, there's a guy we want. We'll trade with you. But if he gets picked like right now, then the trade's off. And if he doesn't get picked, then, you never tell who you want, but you just say, unless he gets picked, we'll make the trade.
We always, AG, they think it's so easy. Like, I can only imagine, and Greg knows. Greg's been around, so like, I've been on the other side where like I was sitting there. I never forget, like 4th round, the Steelers called and said that we could be taking you coming up, and I was super excited. And then I never got that phone call, and then I was like, "Are you kidding me?" They ended up taking some offensive linemen, and I was super, super upset. But it's like the process throughout this and how everybody goes about it. That's what I want. I want to be able to document like what goes on draft day inside the war room, not like the little clips that we see here and there. I want to give me full access. Mm-hmm. You guys can have creative control, so you can cut out whatever you want to cut out. But let's go through and see how they go about this, because the phones have to be working. They better have a battery pack or, battery, because a lot of stuff going on, Greg, and it's just amazing.
In order for you to do something like that, they'd have to have a ton of trust in you to allow you in the door. Now, and there have been guys who've done it. Jay Glazer, a couple times when Sean Payton was at New Orleans, sat in their room. But Jay and Sean, I worked with Sean with the Giants before I came here, and Glazer was a beat writer, and Sean and Glazer were tight. So they got a relationship that goes back a long way. And so Sean was okay with that. And Peter King's been able to get into a room. But you got to have it's tough because people don't want the outside to know what really goes on.
Yeah. You would have to have a lot of trust. And just talking about those relationships with people, with Jay Glazer, he has shown you gotta put your time in. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm putting my time in. I get it. At some point, I'll get that phone call, you know what I mean? From, hey man, come on over here. Let's go. I just think that it's so interesting right now to see where this organization is, right? You guys, I mean, you just think about this, just from 2 years ago to where they finished this season. Could have been double-digit wins. There's a couple games, three games that should have won. And then we would be totally looking at this team a whole lot different. But where they're set up, it's on that. We're at this level right now to figure out, okay, which way are you actually going to go? Are you gonna keep ascending and going up? Are you gonna flatten off a little bit? And so I think that's what has people so excited about what the future could be, man. And I feel like this draft is taking forever to get here.
Tell me about it.
Because we ended the season and it wasn't even the end of the season. I think that's why I give Justin Fields so much credit. Man, it was like this dude was fielding questions about his future here in Chicago before the season even ended. Season ended, and then we went into this crazy mode of like what's next and having the number 1 pick and Caleb and all this other stuff and how he handled himself. And I mean, I gotta give that young man a lot of credit. It had to be hard. Like it was hard for me to talk about it every day. I didn't want to talk about it on the show, but it was what everybody was talking about. And I'm like, I can only imagine how this young man feels. But my mom said something to me when we were in Arizona. And I just want to say this to Bears fans because it made me, because she doesn't follow the Bears like that. She watches games, but she doesn't follow. But she follows Justin on social media. And she said, man, Jarrett, you know what? I really do love that young man. I said, Mom, he's a really good kid. She goes, he seems happier. Like he's something lifted off of his shoulders. And she goes, I just hope that he has success with the Steelers. I hope he does wherever he goes. And I said, she goes, yeah, he just seems like now he's got a smile on his face a little bit more because he can breathe a little bit. And I was like, Mom, could you only imagine what that's like? She's like, no, it took me back to your dad and all the expectations that he had on him every day. And me being his wife, just sitting back, listening to all these people. He's got to do this. He's got to do that. He's got to do this. And she goes, your dad was in a different stratosphere. You know what I mean? But she goes, but we were doing it with the newspaper and TV and just radio. She's like, now we got all these different means of communication and social and all this stuff. She goes, your dad would have went crazy. I was like, yeah, but I would have had him on doing Instagram lives talking about it.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, Jarrett, a couple of questions from the chat room I'd love for you to address. Black Belt Ben asked a question. If we almost win 10 games last year and Poles improved the team this year, what are the consequences? Will our record improve? And Notorious says, ask Jarrett if his expectation this year is the playoffs.
Yeah, I definitely think it's playoffs. There's an opportunity here, even with a rookie quarterback. I think that's what they're setting this thing up for. They're not setting it up just to win 7 games again, 8 games. I think with Greg, you tell me if I'm wrong. I've always felt like this in the NFL, that your quarterback is supposed to be good enough to win you 2 or 3 games when your team's not playing well. That's what we expect sometimes. Your quarterback to take over and to will your team to be able to win. I know that's asking a lot of a young rookie quarterback, but let's just see how it plays out. I would say, yeah, the goal is 9 to 10 wins, and I feel like there's an opportunity to make the playoffs. This division is where it's at. Where do you fit in? And to me, I look at the Lions. It's not going to be easy, and the Lions know it's not going to be easy to repeat what happened last year. It's hard to do that in the NFL because a lot of stuff has to go right. You got to stay healthy. Things got to go your way. How your schedule is kind of laid out. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, but we also know that Green Bay is looking to make a run as well. So how do you fit into that equation? They're making the moves to get to the playoffs, and that's in the picture. And I believe that's inside that frame of that picture as well.
Well, a little thing that helps came out this morning, and I don't think people look at it as big as I do. But just the fact that they're playing in the Hall of Fame game, that extra week, you get an extra week of practice. So you're starting a week before everybody else. You're playing that extra game, but that benefits one person, your rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
It gets him more reps in the preseason and has him more ready to play when the guns really start going off in the first week. And, it's just another preseason game. Well, with Caleb Williams, it's more than that.
Yeah.
Because it's more time to learn and more time to be prepared.
Yeah, more time to be prepared and get you, like Greg was saying, just I think to be able to be in that game week atmosphere a little bit earlier, and what it entails. I mean, the game week is, Greg, game weeks are different, man. Like in the NFL, from going from college to then going to the NFL, it's just a little bit different. And so with all the expectations, all the stuff that's going to be on his shoulders, I just think it does. I agree with Greg. It gives them a little bit more time to kind of get settled in a little bit, but also reps are huge. I mean, you can go through practice all you want to, live game reps when you're going up against. And I think that's why those combo practices that you get a chance to do throughout throughout camp are so beneficial, man. So beneficial, because you go up against your team. But then, like when I was in Tennessee, we had the Bengals come to town and stay and go through those joint practices. Man, that's when the level of intensity went up like 4 or 5 notches. And it was like, whoa, okay.
It's like a preseason game.
Yeah, you can't be out there with two straps in your chin strap. You gotta buckle it up a little bit, get ready to go. So I think it gives him a little bit more time and gives everybody more time as well. The more reps and the more opportunities. And Greg, I think too, you might find some diamonds in the rough that you like too, that are getting a chance to be able to play a little bit more in some of these preseason games, or guys that could be that can be either on special teams and this and that. So it gives everybody just a little bit more time to kind of ante up and get ready.
It just remains to be seen if they in fact schedule an opponent to do a couple joint practices with, this summer. Yeah. I just saw today Detroit's going to be going to New York for some joint practices. So, that stuff just starting to come out. But the preseason schedule, they've only told you, I think they haven't even given the full schedule yet, just what weeks they are, not the days. So we'll find out. And probably be another few weeks or a month before we do. But it's probably good to do that, especially if you're going to have a rookie quarterback, because, again, you're getting him more reps against somebody other than his own teammates.
Yep.
Eric asked the question. He wants your thoughts regarding the swivel hip drop tackle being banned from the game.
I talked about this last night. Listen, I don't know. I'm an offensive guy, so I don't know. They're making it harder and harder for defensive players to play in this game. I don't know. I've had those situations where, come out of the backfield and maybe run like an angle route, right? And you're coming across somebody's face. They're coming downhill at you, and they might not be able to get that direct hit. So where they're at, they're grabbing around the waist, trying to bring you down. I just don't know if I had to be on the defensive side of the ball with all these rules and things that you can't do. I understand horse collars and grabbing somebody from the back. Totally understand that. And people aren't trying to injure people. It's not like they're trying to say, oh, we're just going to knock this guy out of the game. We're going to try to, tear his ACL, whatever it is. No, they're not trying. Dude, they're trying to put, food on their tables and making sure you're making life decisions in a matter of seconds. And now when you got to think even more, this game is a lot about reacting. You got to react to certain plays. The things just don't happen like we see in clips all the time. You're out there on the field. You have to make a decision. Do I not tackle this guy or just let this guy go and go score a touchdown? It's a lot of thinking involved with guys running 4.3 speed and 4.5 speed that we see, and you try to make decisions in your head about, should I do this or am I going to get fined or not? I just think it's very, very tough. I think
it's going to be real hard to even officiate it.
I'm about, hold on, Greg, real quick. I'm about player safety. Player safety is a big deal to me. But I'll be honest. If you ask people that played this game, and I'll say even for me, you're going to tell me I'm catching a ball and you're coming to hit me, I'd rather you hit me up here than down in my legs.
Mm-hmm.
My legs is what I don't want to tear ACL. Right. I've had multiple concussions. I know it sounds crazy, but that's just the way we think. It's the way we think. Like, no, don't come down here. These are the money makers down here. I need these. So it's a tough decision to make, but I think every time I sit and watch the games now, I'm like, it makes it harder and harder on defenses and defensive players to be able to play this game.
You just gave the offense a big advantage by putting that rule in, only because the defenders got to take a split second to think.
Split second. Like, what am I gonna...
That's 5. That could be 5 yards, 10 yards, touchdown.
That's what I'm saying. And like, what are you are just sitting in a meeting room and like sitting there, like you don't want to be that guy. You know what I mean? But also too, I don't want to. Some guys, they don't mind getting a fine check in the mail, but guys that on lower on the totem pole, like I was never getting paid millions while I was in the NFL. Like that's my whole check. Right. I'm not, like I gotta eat. So it's just weird to think about. And I think it's so hard in a split second to make those type of decisions. I think that they're thinking the intention is right, but in reality, it's just too hard to me. That I think we're still gonna see that. We're still gonna see that play. It's not gonna be out of the game. It's gonna have to happen.
Yeah, I saw some stuff yesterday where they're saying, no, this part's legal, this part's not legal. So really, it's going to get down to a subjective call by an official, and which is what you want to do away with. You not add more to it. But hey, it is what it is. I get it. I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see that flag called that often, unless it's just so obvious.
Yeah,
that they have to do it. And how often does that happen? But before we let you go, because you've been generous with your time, I got one thing.
Yes, sir.
And that we talked about in a text a little while ago. One of your teammates, Frank Gore.
Yeah.
Were you in the same class as Frank or behind Frank?
No. So listen, this is how it all went. And this gives you my life story. Clem Portis and I came in together in 99.
Wow.
Willis McGahee came the next year in 2000. And then Frank Gore came in 2001.
Oh, my God.
So you had a little competition.
That's my running back room. Let's not forget. Najee Davenport was there when I got there. James Jackson was there as well. He ended up going to Cleveland for a couple years. So it was DJ Williams came in as a running back, as the number one player in the country. He ended up switching over to linebacker. So like literally my whole entire running back room was filled of all pros, like dudes. And how crazy is it, Greg, that at one point his freshman year, I'm sitting there looking at Frank Gore and not knowing that he would end up being right behind my dad on the all-time rushing list. Like, how insane is that?
Well, then you're going to appreciate this story because you weren't with him a lot, but you were there his first year. So it's his last year at Miami, and I'm there during 2-a-days, and I'm with a good friend of mine, Joe Collins, who was with the Giants at the time. And we're the only two scouts there. So we're watching practice. And we get, what was the weight coach's name then?
That was Swayze. Yeah, Andrew Swayze.
So we spent some time with Swayze, and then we go in to talk to Don Solinger, who's your coach.
Yeah.
And so we're talking, we ask him about Frank Gore. So he goes, I got to tell you this story. And he goes, so you could probably verify it. But he said, Frank wasn't outgoing, didn't say a lot, knew he had to work at things to learn things correctly, but he was very, very conscientious.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes in, he's a freshman, got this new playbook, and it's like everything's Greek to him. So he just takes it upon himself to just study and study and study, when he's back at the dorm, just so he can not be behind everybody else at practice. So he said, this is like maybe a week and a half into practice that his freshman year. And he said, Don says, I get a call like at 2 a.m. from Frank. Frank, what's wrong? He goes, Coach, I have to tell you, I got it. I said, you got what? The playbook. Yes. Now, Frank Gore. Is that something?
Yes. That's something. That's how he was. He studied. Like, he was a guy that wanted to. Everybody. Well, let me go back real quick. Literally, everybody was afraid of Frank. That's why Portis left after the Rose Bowl year. Like, he knew Frank was coming, and then Frank ended up messing up his knee. And that's what gave Willis the free reign to be able to have the year that he had and be in the Heisman conversation in 2002 when we went to the Fiesta Bowl. So guys were like, knew Frank. Frank had this ability that was, he had those moves like Barry Sanders, where he can he could get in the hole and chop his feet, and then next thing you know, he could just jump to the right and he'd be out and then take you down the sidelines. He wasn't afraid to run you over like my pops. I mean, he literally had the whole bag. He had everything in his bag. Does not surprise me at all that when that story, and it sounds definitely true, because he wanted to be one of the best. He always said he wanted to be one of the best. And I'll give him credit. My dad heard about Frank before he passed away when he was in high school. Wow. Like, my pops knew about him, and this is no social media, anything like that. He knew about Frank. Mm-hmm. And so it's crazy to think about, man, all those guys that I was around, the talent that I was around. Man, if I would have went somewhere else, I probably would have played a lot more. But I'll tell you this, I would never, ever give up the opportunity to be around those guys and the great things that I learned from them, not just in football, but also just in life. And it's part of the reason why I am the way that I am, that I work so hard, because I watch all those guys work their tails off, and they set the tempo for me of like how I need to work. Because I came from a different upbringing, right? Like, things were easy. If it didn't go out my way and I just decided to quit, I could just go home to South Barrington. I'd be okay. For them, that wasn't an option. And so I watched that. I learned from them. I learned their stories. And man, those guys become brothers to me. And I don't even know if they know how much that I'm thankful for watching the way that they worked and went about their business. And that's why I'm the part of the reason why I am the way that I am, man. We worked harder than everybody else, Greg. I know. I have never worked that hard in my entire life. And so the workouts that we did, the grind that we went through, that's why I talk about that 2001 team as being the best college team ever, because the games were easy. The practices were so hard. If you didn't come correct, like you were feeling left out. And that's what Frank didn't want to do. Frank didn't want to feel left out. He was like, I don't want to be that guy. I got to know what I got to do, because it was a battle every single practice. So when we got to games, it was like, this is easy. Let's go about our business. And hence the reason why we won a national championship.
Again, that brings up, because the one thing, especially back in those years, in the 90s, those guys at Miami were so competitive. Oh, even with each other.
Yeah.
So when I was with the Giants, we had this contraption called the box, but you never saw it, but we're done using it then. And I had come here, but it was like ahead of its day at the time. It was an electronic timing device that you do different agility drills with, and you do it on a gym floor. So, over by the locker room there, you had the basketball gym. So me and there was another team that was doing it too. It was Baltimore. So me and the guy from Baltimore were doing this together. So there's 2 courts in there, and we'd be doing one person at a time, and the other guys would be playing pickup basketball on the other court, just waiting for their chance to do the drill. Well, after about 2 guys, then the competitiveness set in. Now they're all over where we are, and they're trying to beat each other. Let me do it again. Let me do it again. Let me do it again. And that's what made it so awesome going to Miami at that time, because it was just a joy, because these guys, just the competitive nature that all these guys had was really nice to see.
I mean, just real quick before I go, just think about this. Andre Johnson, Clinton Portis, Philip Buchanan, Bryant McKinney, Vernon Carey. I mean, these are guys that came in with me the year I came in 99. Like it was a battle, everything that we did, man, everything that we did. And I did not know how to work. I didn't know how to work until I got to Miami. Did not know what work actually meant. And so when I start to see, that's what builds championships. It's about the guys that are inside that locker room, that you don't want to mess up that locker room. I've also been, later on in my career in a locker room where you had 2 quarterbacks and the locker room was split with Derek Crudup and also Brock Berlin. So like when this whole thing about Caleb and drafting Caleb and keeping Justin Fields, I was like, I've been in that situation before. That's stuff that divides a locker room. It divides a locker room.
We had it with Sed and Thomas Jones.
Yeah,
so.
It's hard to say because everybody's got friends. So it's to have a locker room that can be as one. And now seeing these guys that are in that side of that locker room talking about Caleb coming, that he's going to have to earn his stripes. Like that to me speaks volumes to where they're headed. And a guy like Jalen Johnson said, listen, you come in, you got to work. And I love that because everybody's got to play their role and you got to put the work in. And then once you put the work in, everything else comes with it. I mean, my greatest achievement had nothing to do. I scored 2 touchdowns when I was with the Titans. My greatest achievement with the Tennessee Titans was coming back from NFL Europe after being all NFL Europe. And the guys inside that locker room watching me, Steve McNair, God rest his soul, and my offensive line. And when I came back to go into that year that I played those 14 games with the Titans, they were talking about releasing me before the season. And I'll never forget Steve McNair and my whole entire offensive line went to Jeff Fisher's office and said, you can't cut that dude. He works too hard. He's put the time in. We watched him. It ain't happening. That right there, when you can get to that point where the guys inside your locker room, they believe in you because they see how hard you work, man, that's what builds championships. And so that's what I want to see Caleb do, is keep working so these guys trust him to a point where everything just starts moving in the right direction.
He's got to be humble when he walks in the door.
Has to.
Jarrett, before we
has to be a rookie.
Jarrett, before we let you go, there's been like 4 dozen complimentary messages in the chat for you. I'm just going to share one. This is from Chris Watts. Jarrett's dad is the reason a 13-year-old lad from Yorkshire, United Kingdom, became a Chicago Bears fan, and the reason I played running back. Bear down, Jarrett.
Chris, that's what I'm talking about, man. When the Bears played the Raiders, it was crazy when I was walking those streets over there, how many Bears fans became Bears fans because of that 85 team. And man, that's what if you ask those guys, you know what they want? They want one of these, man. They want one of these. Everybody wants one of these. They want another one. They want another one of these. And this
I got 2, and 2's not enough.
Yeah, let's go, baby. Bear down.
Awesome.
Jarrett, thank you so much.
Now,
really appreciate it, buddy.
What do you want to plug before you get out of here?
Man, I don't want to plug anything. Just keep watching me on WGN TV, and please check out GN Sports every single night at 10:30 on WGN, and that's where we get a chance to be able to talk all Bears all Bears and all Chicago sports. So hopefully everybody can tune in. But appreciate you guys so much for having me.
What about the
Hey, thank you for
restaurants?
coming on.
Oh shoot! I mean, yeah, if you get a chance, we have Flagship on the Fox, which is in St. Charles. Come out and see us, and then we also have Duke's. Just know Duke's is a Green Bay Packer bar. Just to let you guys know that.
How can you allow that to
But
happen?
hold up, no, Greg, let me tell you the reason why. I literally have a Bears bar and a Packer bar that are a football field away from each other.
Wow.
And the crazy part is, when both teams play throughout the season, you should see the place, both places. It is literally, it's insane. It's literally insane. So I'll tell you the reason why. Packer fans' money is green as well, and I'm going to take it all day long. Do you hear me? Yes, sir. Let's go. All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Jarrett. Appreciate it, my friend.
Bye-bye. What a great guy. Oh, where'd you go? There you
I'm
are.
right here. I'm right here.
That was so much fun. He has
Yeah.
got such an infectious personality. You got to love talking with him. I was a guest on his show once, and a lot of times I think to myself, he probably doesn't remember that. But every time I see him, hey, he treats me like an old friend. That's amazing.
He's been over here to my house. He did one thing. This is, God, it had to be about 6 years ago, and they did the interview out in the backyard on the patio, and just a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Hey, there were a few questions that were posed that I didn't get a chance to pose to Jarrett, and I'd like to pose them to you. For instance, 3 Point Houston wanted to know about did you hear Jim Harbaugh's comments about the offensive line, and basically what Jarrett said at the beginning of the show, you got to build through the offensive line. He talked about the importance. Almost made me feel like Joe Alt is a shoo-in to become a Charger at the draft. Any thoughts?
Knowing the way Harbaugh thinks,
mm-hmm.
and he puts so much emphasis into the run game, very probable. They don't have any receivers, and they got a damn good quarterback. So they got to take care of that, but they don't. The receiving core is so good that they can wait till later on to get some receivers. But again, it's like we were talking before, like, what do you do at 9? It's how do they have their board set up?
Right.
So, let's say Harrison is there or Neighbors is there. Are those guys going to be rated on their board higher than Alt? And they've got, they took the kid from Northwestern a couple of years ago at left tackle, but I don't think they got a real strong right tackle.
Mm-hmm.
You could always put Alt over on the right side. It'll be interesting. I mean, is he showing his hand? I doubt it. And he might purposely be doing that. Well, I think we're leaning this way because they're really leaning another way. You know how that stuff goes.
Yeah, indeed. Victor has a hypothetical for you. He says, if McCarthy is available at 9 and you know someone other than Minnesota wants him, do you trade just to keep him from going to Minnesota?
Well, first of all, that's not going to happen. From everything that has been said or heard, in fact, yesterday I tweeted it out and I did the name wrong. I was listening to the insiders, not really watching it. I was doing some other stuff and listening.
Yeah.
So my tweet was initially wrong. I thought Steve Weiss had said this, but it was actually Tom Pelissero said it to Weiss. But they're all there. Is that the talk at the owners' meeting is that the guy, the favorite in Washington, is supposedly JJ. Now, people go smokescreen. Well, I said, just for the sake of argument, why do they got to throw out a smokescreen? Nobody can jump in front of them. The only pick in front of them is the Bears, and everybody knows what the Bears are doing. So, it's like they're on the clock. They don't have to lie.
Yeah, right.
But it's interesting. We talked about it before, that once the coaches got involved in this process, that guy was going to be the hot name because he's so damn smart. He knows, he just picks up things. His character is off the charts. Football's important to him. And so, and you can't blame him. People say, well, he didn't put up the numbers at Michigan. Sure he didn't. But so what? He did what he was being asked to do. That was their offense. You cannot criticize a guy or blame a guy for doing what he's being asked to do.
Exactly.
If you put him at USC or one of these schools that were throwing the ball all over the place, he would have put up huge numbers. But Michigan was a old-fashioned grunt team that was going to beat the hell out of you. And he lost one game in 2 years.
It's not bad.
What's wrong with that?
That's not bad at all. Jose wants to know, should we as Bears fans temper our expectations regarding this iteration of the Bears, who, while they upgraded at certain positions, are going to be starting a rookie quarterback?
I agree with that. We talked about that with Jarrett. The expectations are high, but I think they're too high. It's fact. The last time a rookie took his team to the playoffs before Stroud was years and years ago. And there's been a lot of good quarterbacks come into the league. So now granted, this situation on paper is pretty darn good. And especially the acquisition of Keenan Allen. So now you got two good receivers, and they also picked up a move tight end, which tells me, and they paid this guy some money. So they're going to probably play a lot of 12 personnel. And because really, when you look at the roster right now, they don't have a second defensive end, and they don't really have a legitimate third wide receiver. So there is a need there. That's why I think they still could sign a veteran. And there's some good guys out there. I think they're just waiting. There's one that got signed yesterday that I was hoping would be on the radar, and he went to Pittsburgh, and that was Kez Watkins, who was with Philadelphia. And more of a slot receiver type guy. So, but he got signed by Pittsburgh yesterday. But there's other guys. Supposedly, Josh Reynolds, who was with the Lions, played under Waldron with the Rams for like 3 years, so they know each other well. And supposedly he's on the radar, but who knows? I mean, you know what? Every name that's been tied to the Bears is not a Bear over the last 2 years. So we just got to wait and see. But I think that'll tell a lot. If they sign a receiver, they're not using the receiver at 9. That's my opinion. But now if you get to 9 and one of those top 3 receivers is there and the good edge is there, boy, that's a hell of a decision they got to make.
Indeed. It's going to be a tough one. Evie asked a question, and I think she misunderstood maybe something that you said, but she wanted to know, Greg, why do you think Caleb is generational? Did you say he was generational? You've said he isn't.
No, I wrote back. This is before the Notre Dame game.
Right.
Put him up here like everybody else did. And then I started hearing some things. First of all, the second half of the season was not good. The team didn't play good. Okay. So, but he didn't play up to his level either. And it started with the Notre Dame game. You watch his talent is superb. Like, you watch his pro day. We haven't been on since his pro day. And, I've been to a bunch of pro days, and quarterback pro days really aren't worth much because they're scripted. Where, if you're going to a pro day to do an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman or something, you can you get the guy aside, and the pro coaches are the ones that are running the workout. But when you go to a quarterback pro day, the guy's quarterback who runs the workout. He's got a scripted workout. In Caleb's situation, it was 50 throws. He had practiced that several times, knew who was going to run what route, when, where. And so, it's a rehearsed event, and it's there to show strengths. Now, in what I thought they did really good with that workout is a lot of his tape at USC is improvisation.
Mm-hmm.
The rollouts, off platform throws, everything like that, where this workout was strictly from the pocket. And so I think it just said, yeah, see, I can do this just as good as I can do the other stuff. I don't need to do the improv stuff. But the one thing that jumped out, and I've never criticized the talent, was number one, he was very relaxed. Where, I went back and I looked at Lawrence's pro day, Josh Allen's pro day, and a couple others. And these guys were a little bit uptight, when they're doing it. And Caleb was very, very relaxed. His footwork was excellent. And it's like the ball came out of his hand so nice. There was no effort, just so nicely. And he can zip it. He didn't have to zip it. But just the way you saw the talent because of how easy he made it look. Mm-hmm. And then when like I said, I went back to look at other pro days just to see the difference. And the difference was obvious that, he is very, very, I guess it's in a good way, very sure of himself. And, people have been around him. People have been around him have said that he already thinks he's one of the best quarterbacks in the game at any level. Not just coming out of college. He's like, in the stratosphere with the NFL guys. There's nothing wrong with that, but you still got to be humble.
Right.
He's a rookie. He's got to earn the respect of his teammates.
Right. Creighton Wolfong says that, do you think that maybe Caleb's decline in the second half last season was because he was playing not to get injured, or at least it was heavy on his mind? I got a feeling, Greg, that it had a lot to do with it, that he was playing Superman football. He knew the team was terrible, and so he was just trying too hard to win a game when his team was inferior to most of the competition they faced.
I don't think his wide receiver core was that bad. Jerry Rice's son's going to probably be a third-round pick. I wouldn't mind saying, put it this way: if you pass on taking a receiver at 9, and you're sitting in the third round, and he's there, that's a name you're probably going to discuss. He's a good player, and he's got size. He's bigger than his dad. He's faster than his dad. He's not his dad, but, he's a pretty darn good player. The offensive line at USC wasn't very good. So the protection, he had to run for his life a lot. And people say, well, he held on to the ball too long. Well, yeah, but you could also say he held on to the ball a long time because he was scrambling for his life to find an opening where he can get the ball finally out. And a lot of times he ended up completing the pass.
Right.
So, and where he doesn't have the speed that Justin has, he's got elusiveness, for maybe lack of a better term, to make people miss in a confined area that's probably better than Justin has. But when Justin has an opening, it's all over. He's, with that speed, he's gone. So, different type. They both can extend and make plays with their feet. Justin can hit the home run if you give him enough space. I don't think Caleb can hit the home run, but he's going to get you first down if he has to, and keep the play alive.
Okay. D. Stan, did you hear Posen's press conference yesterday?
I didn't hear all of it. I heard some of it, and I thought that, he was pretty sincere,
Very.
kind of subdued. Is that
yes, yes, especially in the beginning. Yes.
Yeah, calculated.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he wanted to get his point across that this wasn't an easy thing for him to do. And you could see it. There's things you saw during the year that there was a closeness. There is a closeness between Ryan Poles and Justin Fields.
Very
and
much.
I get it. Now, would I have done the same thing? Probably not. But, you could probably put it's like draft picks. You could put a bunch of scouts in the room and you're going to have a different opinion. I like Justin Fields' talent, and I don't think we've even begun to see how good he could be. I hope we see that in Pittsburgh.
I hope so too.
Because I'm not, I get what Tomlin said. They required Wilson first. He's right now the starter. Well, they haven't practiced for 1 second yet. So all that is just talk. But I think come opening day, Justin Fields is going to be the starter in Pittsburgh, not Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson doesn't have the talent, but he's got more experience, but he doesn't have the talent.
Well, D. Starren is asking, did Poles sound like he wanted to keep Fields with Caleb, but was talked out of it? And there was a certain point in the press conference they were talking about all of the debates and discussions they had about what to do with the number one, and even the topic of having both of them on the team next year was discussed. To me, it didn't sound like Poles was talked out of it. I think what he was saying was we had a discussion about it, but we agreed that would not be best for the team because
I think that would have been a disaster.
Right.
You're setting yourself up for dividing the locker room.
Dividing the locker room, and Poles mentioned, the rookie quarterback has to get a fair share of snaps, and if you've got Justin there, how's that going to work? So it would have been very, very complicated. Having said that,
it got down to he was resetting the contract, and really that was through no fault. I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's through no fault of Justin Fields, but how Ryan Poles wants, his vision of how to put this team together. So, that's what it is. The only thing is that, and we all know this is going to happen because that's what people do. They're going to watch what Justin Fields does in Pittsburgh. They're going to watch what Caleb Williams does here.
Yep.
And if Justin really plays well, you're going to hear about it.
Oh my gosh!
Yes. And if he plays better than Caleb, if they both play well, then everybody won.
Yep.
But to go back on the trade that we never got to touch on this with Jarrett was. I think they hurt themselves, and we said this last week, back at the original postseason presser and then at the combine, because it became very obvious that they were going to probably move along with JF. And that, when other teams know that, why do I pay you? You're getting rid of them. I'm not giving you anything. So that, I think, if you play it a little differently and say, Justin Fields is our quarterback, and now you want to come and get him, you don't say that, but now you think, let people think, well, they might want to trade him, but they got the number one pick. Let me see if I can get him. Well, now maybe you're getting a third instead of a sixth that could be a four. But you know what? It's still throwing a dart at the wall because it's not the way it happened, but that's the way I think.
Let's see. We've got this from Scottish Bear. Greg, with Poles doing his due diligence with Williams, Poles mentioned that Caleb is not just liked by his teammates, but that he is loved. And so, Greg, will you ever admit your source may have got this wrong?
No. And I'll say this. Do you think that he's going to say anything different?
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Poles meeting? Do you think he's going to say anything different? Of course not. They made their mind up that that's the guy they're going to take. So, of course, he's going to say that. So, that, if I was in his spot, I'd say the same thing, too. But, I've been doing this for 43 years now, and I've got a pretty good file of people around the league that got a lot of information, and I trust those people. So I'm going with that. What I want to see Caleb do is come in here, be humble, be a rookie, earn the respect of the teammates, work hard, and, don't come in like, hey, I'm the number one pick. And, like Deion Sanders is trying to do with his kid, throw that shit out the window. Earn the respect. And you know what? DJ and Jalen, they've already let it be known, man. You got to earn the respect of these guys. If he does that, he'll be fine. Because he's not a bad person. That was never one of my complaints. It was other stuff. So if he just accepts all the other stuff, he'll be fine. Be a pro. You got to learn how to be a pro. You can't just be a pro. You got to learn how to be a pro.
Right. Are you satisfied with the quarterback room as it stands now, or do you think they might add another veteran?
No, I know that they really like, but some of those guys are gone. As far as the coaches are gone, but I know they really liked Bajan last year.
Yeah.
And he started 4 games, 1-2 as a rookie coming from a Division II school. What are you asking a backup to do?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Be 2-2. And that's what he was, 2-2. Right.
And so showed a lot of promise. So, he's a guy that, if he continues to show promise like in preseason games and stuff, another year, he could be a guy that teams are looking to trade for.
Somebody just put up a ridiculous comment. I'm not even going to entertain it. All right, let's talk about the new kickoff rule that was announced earlier this morning. You know it very well because it was implemented in the XFL. This is your friend Eric Galko, our guest from last week. He posted this diagram, and basically the kickoff now is going to remain from the 35, but the other 10 players will be lined up at the opponent's 40 with a 10-yard gap between the 5-yard gap with the other team's defenders. And then the landing zone is between 10 and
between the 20 and the goal line.
The 20 and the goal line. And so this
the
basically
difference between this and the XFL rule is now you see where you got your 2 red dots that are like the 31-yard line?
Yes.
Okay, where in the XFL rule they were all, first of all, they were moved back 5 yards. So the return team was lined up on the 30 and the kickoff team was lined up on the 35 in the XFL. So they gave you, the NFL has tweaked it and given 5 more yards of space to actually to the return team. That helps the return team, I think. And then they got the 2 guys off the line a little bit. And the other difference, too, is in the XFL rule, there's only 1 return guy. The NFL, there's 2. What it does do is it drastically cuts down on concussions because you don't have those 25, 30-yard collisions at full speed that you had with the old kickoff rule. What's good about this rule, what's interesting about this is if you can put the graphic back up and then I can talk through it, is there's just that one line. You got one line of 10 defenders, and you've got one line of 9 blockers, right? You got, there's basically the kicking team's got one more is got one more guy than the return team because you got 2 guys deep, but the guy who's not returning the kick can be a blocker coming up. But you just got to break through that one line, and you got a huge play. So it gets down to how you do the blocking and how good your return team is with the blocking. I have seen some really big returns, and there's going to be some where they're not going to do nothing. But the key is that the way this is set up, the kicker who's sitting way back there on the 35-yard line, he's got to place the ball between the 20 and the goal line, and he can't kick it in the end zone.
That's awesome.
So there has to be a return. If he kicks it into the end zone, it's a touchback, and the offense is getting the ball like at the 35-yard line or something. So you're penalizing the team. They want the return to happen. Now, if you got a good cover team and you're able to directional kick, the kicker's good enough to directional kick, and let's say put up the ideal kick would be between the 5 and the goal line over in the corner or something. And now you're giving the coverage team a little bit of an advantage, then they might only get it out to the 20. But because there's just really that one line of defense, that you're going to have a situation where you're going to get a seam and you're going to get some returns for touchdowns. And that's what the whole key is you want to bring some excitement back into the game with the return game.
Eric Galko, again, our guest from last week, said that for roster construction, this is going to make some changes. So he says that now this is really going to incentivize every return to be a live play. That puts in 10 more plays into real action again, and one that requires a defined skill set. Guys who are like running backs as opposed to the traditional kick returner who was usually more of a speedy player, a speedy wide receiver, safety, or what have you. What do you think that this could do to the roster construction?
I don't know if I agree with Eric on that, because first of all, it's really 2 different skill sets between a punt returner and a kickoff returner. Okay, where a punt returner, you got to make the key. You got to be able to field the ball. That's the most important thing. And then the next thing is make the first guy miss and go from there. So he's got to have some quickness, elusiveness, explosiveness, and obviously be able to field the ball. Where a kickoff returner under the old rules was more of a find the seam, explode through the seam, more of a running back type thing than a punt returner. And that's why some running backs are really good kickoff returners. But I think the instincts come into play at both. But could you have a different person doing punts as kickoffs than kickoffs? Yeah, you could, because you're going to have the guy that has the unique skill set for this. And one thing I'm glad about, because I had posted yesterday, they could, if the NFL does what the NFL usually does, they'll table this until May. Okay. And then do it. And so now you're not practicing it because they're tabling it until May. You're not really practicing it until you get to training camp. Well, now it's the rule's done. You can start practice as soon as the offseason program starts in another few weeks. And now the first 2 weeks are just conditioning. But once you get on the field, you can start working on that and finding out how it's going to work, putting together your different blocking schemes for it and whatever. So it gives you the entire off-season program, OTAs, et cetera, and mini camp to work on it before you get to training camp. And I think that's huge.
Do you think any of the 3 running backs currently on the roster, Khalil Herbert, Rashawn Johnson, and DeAndre Swift, are candidates for the job, or do you think that veil is Jones is probably the number one guy on our imaginary depth chart.
I think that remains to be seen because it's a different style kick. They re-signed Dante Pettis, but Dante Pettis is more for punts than kickoffs.
Yeah.
It wouldn't shock me. You left out Travis Homer. Travis Homer's really a special teams guy.
Yeah.
But it still wouldn't shock me if Khalil Herbert isn't here. I'm throwing some shit at the wall here. Only because they're paying Swift. They really like Roshan. And do you have enough? You saw how it worked last year, and Foreman was always the odd man out because Homer was going to dress because of special teams,
right?
And they weren't going to dress for. So, and Khalil Herbert, as great a runner as he is with the ball in his hands, he's not a good pass receiver, and he's not a good pass blocker. So who's the guy that you could be able to, you don't have 5th, 6th, 7th round picks. Who's the guy you can get something for that's got value that maybe sitting as the roster sits right now is number 3 on the depth chart in the running back group?
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there for thought.
It's certainly something worth thinking about, and we'll see, because this running back class, there's a lot of interesting day 3 running backs, but if you got but if you've got a tried and true running back available to you via trade for a 5th or 6th round draft pick, some teams might be interested in that.
Or 6th or 7th. I mean, he's a running back. Right away you're not going to get easy, but he's got 1 year on his contract, and then he's a free agent. And see, that's another reason to me. So basically, he's a 1-year rental now.
Yeah,
because they're not going to give him a second contract. Not happening. That's not the way that Ryan Poles does business, especially at that position. So, to me, he's got some value. How much value? I don't know, because running backs don't carry a lot of value. I would think 6 to 7.
Okay.
And I think a 5 is too high. If somebody wanted to pay a 5, my God, I'd jump on it in a heartbeat.
That's true. That is a little high.
Only because of the position, not but he has limitations. But give him the rock, he's pretty damn good.
Yeah. We talked about the number 9 pick with Jarrett Payton. This is what Ryan Post said yesterday about the number 9 pick.
Yeah, I like the numbers. I've talked about this when I first got here, but we, have different tiers on our draft board. So I like the numbers in terms of the talented players that can get to 9. We're going to do some cool things when we get back, kind of break into teams, and one team's going to talk about what's the tackle position is the best to go after, the wide receiver is the best, the defensive end is the best, and use factual information to kind of spit that out, and we'll have a debate in terms of what's more impactful for a football team, short-term and long-term. So I'm looking forward to that exercise.
I thought that was really fascinating, the exercise they're going to go through, and the fact that he said, there's certain players in that tier 1. So how many players do you think are in their tier 1? Just, take a guess.
I couldn't even tell you, because, I don't know the grading system he uses. I knew the one I used, but you have an arch, that number would separate the tier, but you're going to have, a list of guys throughout the grading system, just the names, that you're going to say, these are our tier 1 guys. And let's say there is 9 there, and they got the 9th pick, and they're saying, well, we're sure to get one of them, and then somebody gets picked who's not in that tier, because, as I've said 1,000 times, no 2 boards are alike. So, I mean, it's really going to be interesting. I honestly believe that tackle is not really in the consideration. Is he talented enough to take at that point? Yes. And I think you got to let it be known that that is the possibility, because that just helps you with whatever you want to do.
Indeed.
When it comes to draft day, part of your strategy, because what they will do, they haven't finalized their board yet. They won't finalize their board until next week's the first week April. Shortly after that, they'll start. They'll bring all the scouts in and they'll start finalizing their board and get it in cement. And once that's done, then you start looking at your strategy. How are we going to accomplish what we got to accomplish? And right now we're sitting with 4 picks. And so, and then it's starting to do that. Does that mean I got to try to trade out at 9? Well, maybe, but there might be 1 or 2 players that, if they're there, I'm taking them. I just got them rated too high. I'm so that's going to be part of it. And number 1's already taken care of. So that's not even part of the conversation. The conversation is 9, and what happens at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then who's behind there that wants to potentially come up.
Right. Lefty asked a question: if you didn't move from 9 and Joe Alt is there, but also Marvin Harrison Jr. and Odunze, because that's possible with Malik Neighbors being mentioned as the pick above Harrison Jr. So if those 2 wide receivers are there, would you prioritize them over the left tackle, Mr. Alt?
It's a great question. You got to look at the talent. It's how I'm going to go back, and I'm not copping out here. It's how do they have them ranked? So we've talked about Marvin Harrison. I'm not as high on Marvin Harrison as everybody was as the greatest receiver of all time to come in. He's excellent. I'd love to have him on the team. Okay. But he's not his dad, who's in the Hall of Fame. And we were going to do this today, but we're not really going to have time to do it today. So maybe we'll do it next week. But when you put on tape and you watch Neighbors, you watch Harrison, and then you watch Odunze back to back to back, you see the differences between them. And they're striking. And what Marvin Harrison is he's a big, tall receiver with a huge catch radius who runs really good routes, can go up and get it. He's going to catch everything you throw to him and get you a lot of touchdowns, get you a lot of first downs because of that. Okay, what's the weakness? His run after the catch is very, very average. He gets what's there. Now, somebody may want to argue with me, but the tape don't lie. And we've got the tape that we're gonna show. And if there's a hole there, a seam there, and he's got the speed, he can take off, he's gonna do it. Does he make anybody miss? No. Now you look at Malik Neighbors. He can make anybody miss. And his explosiveness, his separation. Harrison wins because of his length, his size, and his catch radius. Neighbors wins because of his ability to get separation. And he doesn't get separation by a yard. He gets a separation by 3 to 5 yards all the time. He's lightning quick. And then his run after. His run after is as good as I've ever seen. Probably better than most guys in the league right now. And then you got Odunze, who's like in the middle. Because he's got return value too. And he's really good after the catch. He's not going to be as fast as, he was like a 4.45, 4.46 guy. I'm really anxious to see what Neighbors runs tomorrow because he hasn't run yet. Because, Brian Thomas ran 4.3. And, you do tape with Brian Thomas, and Brian Thomas plays fast, but Neighbors plays faster. So it's like, what's this guy going to run? Okay. And, we'll find that out tomorrow. But, it wouldn't shock me if that Marvin goes first, because it's going to be whoever takes the first receiver off the board. It's how they rank the players.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that every team in the league ranks them that way. That's how that team ranked it. Because I know for a fact there's teams that got Neighbors number 1. I know for a fact there's teams that got Odunze number 2 and Harrison number 3. But they all got them in the top 10. So, they're really good football players. It's just, you're nitpicking. It's what do you look for? I guess the guys I've learned for some wide receiver coaches. Todd Haley was here, very good wide receiver coach. Tom Coughlin, great head coach, but he was before he went to Boston College as the head coach, following the 1991 Super Bowl. He was the Giants wide receiver coach, and he was a great wide receiver coach. He was never a coordinator, and he got the Boston College job. But him and some other guys I've worked with, they're huge on catch radius, separation, and run after catch. So that's what I gravitate towards.
Yeah, makes sense.
Marvin has the catch radius, but I don't think he has the run after the catch that the other two got.
Zach asked an intriguing question here about trading. He says, can you take us through what the conversation sounds like on draft day when a team calls to trade up? He's curious about how that negotiation happens in a narrow window of time. You've talked about this in the past, but this would be a good time to kind of share that information again.
Well, okay. It first of all, it starts days before. Okay, so drafts on Thursday the 25th.
Mm-hmm.
Usually a few days before. So let's say Monday, Sunday, Saturday, around in there. The Bears make up in their mind that they may want to trade out. They're not locked into trading out, but they may want to.
Mm-hmm.
They might say, okay, there's 2 guys we take. And then if those 2 guys are gone, then we try to move down a little bit, get some other picks. All you do is you call up and you set in your mind where you want to go. You draw the line in the sand. I'm trading out. But like let's say, I think you got to throw out trying to get a second round pick because you're going back too far. Now you're really dropping down in quality of talent. So let's say it's 3, 4, 5 picks where you can still got a pretty good chance of getting a really good player. And you call those teams, you say, hey, the guy we want may not be there. Just want to let you know we may be willing to trade out of that pick. That's all you say. Done. Okay, now, on the other side, well, let me finish that. Come draft day, everybody who wants to trade up is going to be calling you. But you've let it be known that the pick may be for sale. Okay, on the other side, let's say you're sitting at 15, 16, 14 or whatever, and you want to get into the top 10 because there's a player you're eyeballing. And when you trade up, you're trading up for a specific player. So then it's, hey, there's a player I like, may be there when you're on the clock. Would you be willing to trade up? Yeah, we may be. Call me. That's it. Then it's done. All you've done is lay a foundation.
Mm-hmm.
So now, first 6 picks are off the board. So you got 7, 8, and 9. And now those teams that want to get in there, and they're saying, hey, number 9 available. We may want it, but a certain player's got to be there, and you don't tell them, who the player is, and then you let them know. And if he gets picked in these next 2 picks, then we're not making the trade. And so then you start talking. Okay, what's it going to cost? And now, back in the year we took Devin, we had 6 or 7 teams going on calls at once. It was crazy, But it started probably 4 picks before we were on the clock. When we had like the 29th pick, and we were going to trade out of that, and we had a bunch of different teams calling us, and I think then it was 15 minutes still, not 12. Might have been 12, but you still had, however many picks there were times 10, 12 minutes or whatever, and you were trying to calculate this really quick and try to think, okay, which one's the best package for us, depending where the thing is. So it's not something you got to have like a group of people who are doing this, because you got to figure it out, and you got to think fast. But it's like you say, it's not. Ryan Pace, when he was trading up to get Fields, I guess he made that call in the morning to say, I may want to move up if somebody's there. That's the same thing as if he would have called 2 days before, just kind of alert a few teams that I may be looking to move up. But you can't lock it in until you know that player's there. And then, you got to start doing that a couple picks before.
Okay. Great question here from sort of on the same topic. Jose wants to know, the Cardinals are on record saying they would be open for business regarding the 4th overall pick. Could it be possible that the Bears trade up from 9 to get a player they covet? So I took a quick look here at the points. At 9, the points are 1350, and the Cardinals' 4th pick is 1,800. So there would have to be at least a 500-point return, which is a high second-round pick, which the Bears
you're going to pay. You're going to pay to get in the top 5. You're going to pay a premium. They're going to be giving up some stuff next year. I cannot see that happening, because now you only got 4 picks.
Right.
I see them going south, not north.
Yeah.
You want to get more picks, not lose more picks.
Right.
But I can see them, if they do trade down, like we talked about earlier when Jarrett was on, that if they do trade out 3-4 slots or something like that at 9 and go down to 12, 13 around in that area, and they're still getting a really quality player, now you got 2/3 and 2 seconds next year. Now there is a way you could try to get into the second round. But again, the right player's got to be there.
Yeah, exactly. Mr. Shorty asks, what do you think about Donnie Mitchell, the wide receiver, and where his draft position is ranked? So what are your expectations for where Mitchell? I've seen him go in the first round, bottom of the first round.
Yeah, 25 to 35 guy.
Yeah, exactly. You see the same thing?
Yeah. A good player.
And then final question is from TJ Johnson. Does Greg think they could look to sign a wide receiver like DJ Shark to ensure that they don't feel cornered to take one early unless highly rated? And could Newton, the defensive tackle who I've loved all season long, could he be in play for that second first round pick?
No, number 9 is way too high for him. And he just had a surgery.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I saw that.
That's and then you counter in the fact that what did they do last year? They signed a free agent defensive lineman that they've already extended, and they took a guy in the 2nd and 3rd round. And the 3rd round guy was actually a 2nd round guy because he was the 64th pick. It's just, any other year he's a 2nd round pick, but because there was one pick canceled from last year. He ends up officially third round, but technically second. So I can't see that happening. I just can't. It's now I lost my whole train of thought. Go back to that.
Mitchell. Oh no, it wasn't Mitchell. It was prior.
That was about Newton from Illinois. I just can't
Newton.
see Newton being in the equation at 9 at all. There was another player he mentioned in there too, but could a left tackle be there? Yeah, depending on the rank. I just know that they really like Braxton Jones, and so what are you going to do with him? Because all of a sudden you're putting him on the bench, and you still got a need at wide receiver and a need at defensive end, and you got no picks left. You're not picking again until the 4th round or the 3rd round, and then the 4th round, and then you're done. It just doesn't make sense to me. But like I said earlier, I put that scenario out there. Let people think that Joe Alt's the guy you want, and let somebody jump up in front of you to get him.
Yeah. And Poles did say yesterday that, and again, this could be gamesmanship on his part, but that he would be satisfied with just having 4 picks. And he cited, that this year there were a lot of players who went back for another season of college football, that this
Right.
was, the talent isn't as deep, not in all positions. Clearly, the wide receiver position and a tackle position are very deep. But, 4 picks wouldn't be a terrible thing, and he's fully loaded with draft picks. He's got more than 7 next season. So this could be a year where you focus on getting those players that the roster desperately needs, high-level talent. I wouldn't mind them keeping number 1 and number 9. I really wouldn't.
Well, I think they take number 9 if the right player's there.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
if the right player's not there, then you go back. So
I
or
agree.
maybe it's the right 2 players. But
Yeah.
it'll be interesting. But it's you got to play this game too, and it's part of the whole scenario thing that you go through, and you start doing this in the last week up. I've said this several times. Preparing for the draft is like preparing for a game on Sunday. During the week, for your game on Sunday, during the week, you put together a game plan, install the game plan, and practice it, and then on Sunday you execute. Well, that's the same thing with the draft. You put together a plan for the draft, and on draft day, you execute it. You're not making decisions on draft day.
Yeah.
You've made those decisions. You get there. Now, but here's the thing I want to bring up. So you got to look at the strengths and weaknesses of every position. Okay, so wide receiver, tackle are really deep. Wide receiver, you just look. I did my little thing the other day, but I only used the first 2 rounds. So I went back 10 drafts. In 2014, 12 receivers went the first 2 rounds. 2015, 9. 2016, 7. 2017, 6. 2018, 8. 2019, 9. 2020, 13. 2021, 10. 2022, 13. 2023, 8. Round figure, there's going to be 10 receivers go in the first 2 rounds. So when you're preparing to use the averages, and this is a good class, that if you say, okay, I'm going to take an edge with number 9 because there's a big drop off, then, okay, who can I get receiver wise in the 3rd round? Well, I can get 11, 12, or 13 or 13. How they are on my board might be different than how they came off the board. So you could end up getting your number 8 or something like that. But when you look at the names, there's still quality names. Say you just took 10 off, your top 10 off. You still got some damn good receivers there.
Yes, indeed.
You know,
Yes.
and so what are the chances of getting a good receiver with that third pick? Pretty good.
Yeah.
What are the chances of getting a edge with that third pick who can come in and start? Pretty poor.
Yeah.
Okay, you got, because there's I wrote up in Windy City. He's a little over age. He's like 24, and I can't think of his name right off the now. From Washington State, he had 8.5 sacks.
Mm-hmm.
Really good football player, and wow, that'd be a great third round pick. But then when you look at it and you look at the depth or lack thereof at that position, he's like, he doesn't get into the third round. He's too good, and expect because of the lack of talent, and then Mo Camara, who's a little bit undersized because he's 6'1.5", but he's got long arms for a 6'1.5" guy. He runs a 4.55. He's like Brandon Graham from the Eagles. I mean, almost identical size-wise. Brandon Graham coming out. Brandon Graham's only played 15 years in the league. I mean, I'm not saying that this guy's going to be Brandon Graham, but that's the comp. When you look at, and athletically, he's actually a better athlete than Graham was coming out of Michigan. Graham went first round. But again, because of this year, I can't see Mo Camara being there in the third round. Could he be? Yeah. Will he be?
Not going to happen.
3 years, probably. I can't see it this year.
Illinois Jones asks, how much does next year's class play into how teams pick this year?
I don't think you can really think about that because you got to take care of this year now.
Mm-hmm.
Not the long league. I might not be here next year to make next year's picks.
Right.
You got to take care of this year right now. And so, but at the same time, you don't want to, and I got to emphasize this, you don't want to drop off in talent value to take a need, which means that's why I keep emphasizing it's how the board's set up. The Bears board is set up at number 9.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's say Odunze is there and Turner's there. Well, Turner might be the better need, but who's got the higher grade on their board?
Right.
We're never going to know the answer to that. Well, we will. The guy they take, but there will be fans. Let's say, just throw a dart at the wall, and they take Turner, and there's going to be fans. How could you pass up Odunze? Because we had him rated higher. We had Turner rated higher, but and that's going to be their answer. But I think you got to expect that. But you know what? Either one's going to be a good player that's going to help the team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would say to Illinois that I think Poles really answered your question yesterday when he, said that the talent this year isn't as in-depth as it's been in past years because of players returning back to school, because of certain situations. And next year, where they have more than 7 picks, there's going to be more talent. So I think that they probably think about it a little, but I think Greg is absolutely right. The emphasis is on win now. Gotta move this team up.
Part of that too, though, with the depth of the draft, is that less underclassmen came out this year than have come out in the previous years. So where that is, when you look at the total big picture of the draft, it's taking some players out of those middle rounds. But reality is it's how good you do a job scouting, where it's affecting the 6th and 7th round.
Mm-hmm.
And right now they don't have a 6th and 7th round. So is it that big a deal? So, but next year, I think we were at one point like 120, 130 underclassmen, and there's like 50 this year, something. I forgot what the exact number, but it's way down from previous years. But a lot of that has to do with NIL. These guys are making money staying in school. So why shouldn't I stay in school? Maybe help myself, and so how I think part of it will be the type of these kids that decided I'm staying in school because they're getting some extra money from NIL, how they end up playing next year and what their draft stock is next year, that could have an effect on the underclassmen the following year, or for next year, when they got to declare next year. And could we have a larger number? Maybe. We're not going to know the answer to that until, a year, till next January when they got to declare. But now you said they got extra picks next year. Yeah, they got an extra. What are their extra picks? They got extra two. What are the other ones?
That might be it. No, I think they got 2 6s, if I remember correctly. Let me see if I can find it quick.
Oh, they do. They got the 6 for Justin
Yeah.
Fields. That could be a 4.
That could be a 4, indeed.
He's got to play 51% of the players.
Interesting. Ravi says, do we have a reaction to Jordan Silvera posting that he's no longer a Bears fan?
Poor Jordan. Is he on today?
He's not here today, no, but Robbie says, I hope he isn't serious. Now that we're turning into a good team, he's going to...
I took that as he's looking for attention. I'm not going to be a Bears. They traded my favorite player, and I'm not going to be a fan anymore. But the reaction from other people was like, bye, don't let the door hit you in the ass. And you weren't a fan to begin with. Social media can be cruel.
Yes, they can.
That's why
I can be cruel.
You can't take it serious.
We love to bust people's balls around here. Swift says Jordan didn't even like Fields, though. That's the funny thing. He was so critical of Jordan Fields, and then he posts Justin Fields. Jordan
we got to give a plug for Swifty. Swifty's going to be on here as a guest. Sometime probably in the 2 weeks leading up to the draft.
It's going to be a fun show.
And we're going to do it. And I may do a show on his thing too. So there might be 2 of them, one on ours, one on his. And Swifty's a good guy. He's pretty knowledgeable.
Yes, he is.
And not pretty, he is knowledgeable. And I consider him a friend. So I'm in a chat group on Twitter. And he's in that group, and it's the comments in there are interesting, to say the least. There's like 12, 13 people in that, and it gets hilarious.
I love it. Well, Swift, when you come on the show, bring a sample of those hilarious comments that we can use.
No, I think those are
family TV.
Yeah.
All right, that is the end of this episode of GTF. Many thanks to Jarret Payton. That was a sensational interview. He spent almost an entire hour with us. Tonight, I will be back here.
2 hours today. Holy cow.
Yeah, 2 hours. I will be back here at 8 p.m. with Dan Aguirre and Johnny Santucci. We're going to really delve into that Ryan Post interview. And I know Kevin Warren met with the media this morning. I'll try to find some tape on that to share with everybody. And we've got much more programming.
Before you do that, what's your take on that?
On what? Kevin Warren?
On what he said about the lakefront versus Arlington Heights.
I have to believe
playing politics.
I have to believe that he is still playing high-level poker. He wants this Arlington Heights deal to work, and he's just pushing. He's daring the school districts, and I think they're going to buckle because they want that money.
He got a break.
That's right.
Yeah, he got a break last week, but he wants a bigger one.
Yes, he wants a bigger one. And frankly, as much as I'd love to see money poured into the school districts in my neighborhood, I think he's absolutely right. I think that they're trying to
because they don't take into consideration that when that site is developed, all the tax money they're going to get off from the development of that site. You know, so they're just saying, oh, this big rich football team is going to go there. We're going to tax them to death. And that's been the problem in the state of Illinois, like forever. You know, so instead of help the situation with to bring more money into the coffers, we're going to penalize you, which is ridiculous. But I can't see, you know, when you just look at the value of the franchise, if you own the stadium and you control the stadium and you control that development, the value of the franchise skyrockets versus having to rent a facility downtown, just like Soldier Field, and it becomes an expense, but it's not making you money. Like other projects. And to me, it's like, this doesn't make sense to me. You know?
Yeah. Leo says that we should have let Kevin Warren negotiate the Fields trade. That's funny, Leo. All right, everyone. Greg and I will be back here next Monday. We've got a couple of interesting possibilities as guests that'll be locked on over the next few days. And if not, then you're just stuck with.
Yeah, stay on. I got to talk to you for a second.
You got it. We'll all see you very soon. Hopefully you can join us tonight at 8:00. Bye-bye, everybody. Oh,
yeah.
Where's my video? My video disappeared.
I don't know. I'm seeing you fine.
Okay.